Hello, my name is JacobStandridge from the Stating Brothers Show and LibertyOverdrive.com. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you're doing good today. Well, here it is. This is my 2022 music year-end roundup, as well as my top 20 favorite records of the year. I've been promising this video for quite a while. I've been teasing it on my Substack, teasing it on my album of the year, and also on my Twitter as well, which you should all definitely go and check out. 2022 was a very interesting and pretty great year for myself, not only personally, but just musically in general. At the start of the year, I really wanted to challenge myself and go beyond what I would normally listen to as far as music, as being somebody that loves music as much as I do. I found myself kind of in a little bit of a rut and wanted to see what else was out there and see if maybe there's a genre of music that perhaps I do enjoy or don't enjoy, and kind of see what I'm missing. So, beginning of the year, I really put it upon myself to go see what the great beyond has. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side. And as a component of that, I wanted to also start reviewing music, which sounds a lot easier said than done, as I've found putting music into words and describing how music feels to us and how music can affect us and what we like and don't like about it can be kind of hard to put into sentences and into words, as a lot of music we listen to silently. We just kind of observe passively, and to really actively engage it is something different, something of a personal challenge of mine. And what I found through all of this is there was a lot of genres of music that I did happen to enjoy, and it happened to enjoy actually quite a bit over this time. This is the top 20 records that I enjoyed over that time. The way that I came to this top 20 list was based on three criteria. First was basically how I reviewed it initially. What was my initial review? What was my initial feelings of it? Secondly, how does that review hold up now? Do I still enjoy it as much? Do I enjoy it a little bit less? Perhaps a little bit more? I kind of went back and listened to all these records briefly before I made this top 20 list, and to see, how I'm still feeling about all of it. And lastly, I try to remember how much I went back to these records. How much did I listen to it? My Spotify Wrapped kind of helped me gauge that a little bit to see what I was listening to. But those three criteria were basically how this list came about. These are my 20 favorite records, not the 20 best records. These are the 20 records that I would say that I enjoyed the most, I got the most enjoyment out of. So without further ado, it is kind of incredible to think that Willie Nelson is 89 years old. And what a way to celebrate your 89th birthday than release of this record. This record does not revolutionize country music. It does not revolutionize Western music. This is just a solid, really well-produced, well-written country record that for any fan of Willie Nelson, you're going to find some enjoyment out of here. There's great sweet guitar picking, fiddle, also the entire collection of Willie Nelson's instrumentation catalog is here and is played really quite well. Also a nice little Beatles cover at the end of it, which I thought was what I appreciate about covers, is that you take a song and you really make it your own, and Willie does it great here. And doesn't really revolutionize country music, but at this point, does Willie Nelson really have to? No, he just releases a really solid country record, and that's all you really need to go for it. It's a great record. To say that Gavin Dance has had a rough year, 18 months, would be an understatement. With the sudden death of their bassist and all the allegations coming out about Tillian Pearson, culminating into his eventual dismissal and now return, it's kind of weird. These elements kind of had me worried about the record Jackpot Juicer. But I was pleasantly surprised that this is another solid post-hardcore / mathcore record from Gavin Dance. Which, if you know anything about Gavin Dance, this really shouldn't surprise you too much, as this is another pretty standard Gavin Dance record. But what I will say is that this Gavin Dance record, its production is quite good, especially the bass work is especially phenomenal. Lil Swan is just a beast as ever, so expect just a bunch of noodling from the guitar work on this one. Always great. Vocals, again, fantastic. Talion, John Mass, both monsters vocally. And I think that even though the record is slightly bloated in its overall track listing and length, I still feel there are a lot of quality jams here. Anybody who enjoys this sort of over-the-top post-hardcore sound will enjoy a lot. You know, deathcore is not really one of my go-to genres of metal. I just think the dynamics are just not really there for myself personally. For other people, you may enjoy it more than me. That's cool. But what Lorna Shore released on this record, Pain Remains, is one of the first deathcore records that I've actually sat down and say I really did enjoy this record. I felt that they fixed a lot of the dynamic issues that I have with the genre. They conveyed a nice, effective melodic element and symphonic element into the more aggressive guitar and drum work, especially with the blast beating and constant 30-second notes that are being hit a lot of these songs. Created a real emotional response from me listening to this, which is kind of crazy for something as extreme as deathcore is. Will Ramos is insane on vocals. This record really it stretches the limit of what the human voice can actually project, and the guitar work is just absolutely insane. Definitely not for the faint of heart out there, but if you do enjoy the more extreme elements of metal, I'm talking like 8 or 9 out of 10 as far as how extreme this is, you might want to check it out. It's hard to believe that Curtis Chapman has not released a studio record in almost a decade. He is easily my biggest musical influence ever, not even close to the next person, and I didn't even know that. So was this time off worth the wait? I would say yes. I would say that still is a very solid, great record from Curtis Chapman, who has always sort of walked the line between more contemporary Christian and worship music. But I feel this just really sort of leans more onto the contemporary side of his discography. So, not saying you couldn't play any of these songs in church, but definitely leans more into that contemporary side. Again, you're going to have just great songwriting. Curtis Chapman is probably one of, if not the greatest songwriter within modern Christian music. Everything from the chord structures to the melodies here is great. It's just very, very solid. And this is top tier when it comes to the genre is Curtis Chapman. What I did also like about this is sort of the wide range of the sonic palette of the record. It goes from very all-out rock as from the song like I'm Alive, which has great synth and great string elements as well, to the more piano-focused elements of something like Living Color. Only real gripe I have to say about this record's production is the fake claps that are put in, I think, on 1 or 2 songs. It sounds bad. It's just really not good. And honestly, that held me back from giving this record a higher score initially, because I just can't stand those fake claps. But I mean, really, besides that, it's just a very, very well done record. And for me to enjoy it as much as I did really says something about that. Charli XCX is becoming one of my favorite artists within the pop genre, which naturally made me a little bit excited for her new record this year. She definitely saw a change of sound for Charli as she shifted away from her more slick, futuristic hyperpop elements to a straight-up mainstream dance pop record, which for a lot of people would be sort of a turnoff for them. But what I think is that this record shows that she is able to write great experimental music and mainstream cuts as well. There are some pretty heavy elements of 80s synth pop and dance pop in this, maybe not quite to the extent of 70s disco, as in like Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia, for instance. Influences are definitely here in the synth textures and even the way the songs are structured. You can tell this is a very 80s focused dance pop album. Even though dance pop is sort of a very mainstream, very easy, forgettable genre of music, I think that this is definitely one of the better dance pop records I've heard, and easily one of my favorites of the year. One of the biggest records to come out this year, of course, was Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I would be lying if I said that I'm a big rap fan, because I'm really not, but I have slowly beginning to appreciate and understand the genre more and more, and Kendrick Lamar is one of these artists that I have been gravitating towards with his music as sort of a good introduction to the genre from a modern perspective. I appreciate he has something, a positive message that underlies most of his songs. His production is phenomenal on all of his records, and this one is of no exception. This record especially features more minimalistic production as compared to Pimp a Butterfly or Good Kid, Mad City, which is kind of a nice medium ground between his more jazz rap influences and more trap influences. But I think that this has a really nice medium between those two styles that he has used throughout his career. Lyrically, of course, I think this record is very good, and I think that the messages, especially the themes of family and how different sins in our life will affect family relationships, as that is a common theme in all these songs. And even though I know that The Heart Part 5 is not on this record, one of my favorite songs easily of the year. And overall, I think this is a really, really good hip-hop record. If you would have told me last year that Taylor Swift would have made any favorite music list of me, I would have called you insane. But this year, I took it upon myself to review her entire discography, which I did over the course of a few weeks. Listened to every single one of her record. Some of them kind of enjoyed. Some of them not so much. This year we got Midnights, controversial Midnights, based on some of the fan and critic reaction from this. It's pretty split, but for myself personally, I'd have to fall into the side that really enjoyed this record. I thought that this was one of her most consistent records across the entire track listing, and I did really enjoy the instrumentals of this. I thought that the minimal nature was kind of a nice change of pace for her, although that did result in not having as many huge big singles that she normally would have from a record, as Anti-Hero is really the only major single that we got from this record. A great song, yes, but it kind of can bring down an entire track list in that regard. Instrumentally, it's very nice and mellow, combining the best elements of her electronic past as well as the two previous indie folk records that she dove into. Overall, I think this is a really solid Taylor album and one of my personal favorites. To be honest, I don't get the hate for it. You know, it's really hard to find good ska and good punk ska nowadays, but thankfully we have this record from Jer, Bothered and Unbothered. This record was introduced to me from Anthony Fantano as I watched his review, and being someone that really does appreciate ska music and appreciate punk ska, that was naturally inclined to go check it out. And I really do love this record. I really do enjoy it. I think it is one of the best examples of how ska can be used, but also I think I really appreciated the introduction of hip-hop elements in this, which naturally feels like they should go together. It feels like that they were meant to be together. Lyrically, I think this record is really great, socially conscious, but doesn't really beat the listener over with political narratives or messaging too much. Again, instruments, fantastic, great riffs, horn sections are very nice, guitar work is good. It's a great ska record. This record is a trip. It is an electronic indie rock adventure. It's thrown right in with the opening track Doomslayer, which is a 10-minute epic of just electronic thumping, driving synth basses with great indie guitar riffs mixed in. And then from there, the energy carries over into the rest of the track listing, and you have this really nice marriage of indie rock writing with dance elements, with electronic elements, with EDM elements. And you had this really just nice marriage of these two genres together, as well as a little bit of progressive elements in there. This album is absolutely insane. You were just thrown right into a barrage of hardcore punk from the very start, and honestly, it doesn't really let up. You have track after track after track of just barrage of riffs, aggression, everything that 80s and early 90s hardcore punk. You really don't get a chance to catch your breath. The intensity is there. And again, not for the faint of heart of anybody. This hardcore early 80s style thrash almost, but it's punk rock, and then there's elements of hip hop in there. It's just great. Giving the World Away is just an absolutely gem of a listen. So beautiful. It's dream pop, it's shoegaze that melds so wonderfully together. It feels as if you were just flying away on a cloud. But at the same time, though, it has a little bit of an edge to it. It's got a little bit of a drive to it. You have extremely reverbed out production from the guitars and from the synthesizers and from the vocals. Melodies are great. Riff writing here is also great. And super catchy dream pop with shoegaze mixed into it. And I favorite records to just turn on to and chill out and relax to. Dark Life is my favorite pure electronic record of the year. I say that for many reasons, in that this record so effectively crosses and covers almost every single genre of electronic music. Dark wave, synth wave, vaporwave, glitch pop is in there as well. I mean, everything is covered in here, and it's done so well. And even within songs, you'll have certain songs that flow from genre to genre, and it feels almost symphonic in a way, but it's a very dark and atmospheric element to it as well. Extremely experimental, maybe something that not everybody will enjoy, but for everybody that does enjoy experimentation in their electronic music, to the standpoint that vocally it's so robotic that it almost sounds like an instrument, or it sounds like a part of the melody of a song, but it's really a voice, and you have a hard time sometimes deciphering words, but you can still hear the words as if they were a part of the melody with the backing electronics and backing synthesizers. It's a really cool experience that again, not everybody will enjoy, but I definitely think that if you really like more of the edge of the avant-garde side of electronic music, definitely go check this one out. This record is just everything I love about power pop. Power pop is a really interesting genre that you can combine the best elements of catchy pop writing with the tension and sometimes the energy of a rock song. Together, it creates this really unique experience where it's catchy, be it has a little bit of an edge to it. It's a little bit bold in its production and its performances. Vocal performances here are great. I think this is one of the more beautiful female performances this year that I've listened to. Melodies just extremely solid, and I'm not gonna lie, this album probably has my favorite guitar work out of any record of the year. Just fantastic riff writing, fantastic fills, and chord structures I think are really nice, and the solos are good. Tone is just fantastic on this record. Very, very clean times, and can get a little dirty, can get a little bit heavy with some of the riffs towards the middle part of the record. Just such a just a treat to listen to. I just seriously love this record a ton, and people should go out and listen to this one. One of the most interesting records I listened to of the year, Angel Olsen goes back to her more country roots on this record with a pure Americana treat that we have here. The record sort of flows from very old school 50s, 60s style country music and folk music into more Americana, and at the very end we get a very nice chamber pop duo in the last two songs, which are just beautiful songwriting. Just a treat to listen to and enjoy. Melodies here are solid. Storytelling here is great. I especially love her voice. I think she has a fantastic singing voice. It wraps up so nicely, and the record flows from song to song so great. I love this one. Dragon, New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You. A unique name with an equally unique listening experience. Hands down, best country record or best folk record to come out this year, without a doubt. Big Thief, who are known for their indie folk style, come out with just an absolute gem of a record. And for a double album that's pushing an hour and a half, doesn't feel like it. The record is 2 discs long and doesn't feel half the length, because the songs here are just so catchy, such great songwriting throughout the entire project. What I especially love is the wide range of instruments that are being used here. Everything from traditional folk instruments to even stuff like synthesizers, keyboards, strings, and even like a jaw harp. So you really get a nice collective use of instruments here. Such a unique listening experience in that the whole record feels very small. It feels very intimate. It feels just like how this album artwork looks like. It feels like you're all sitting around a campfire and we're just jamming. But it has the structure and the tightness of a studio record, which is quite incredible to behold. And it's just a great record. Just a calming, chill record to put on at the end of the night or in the morning when you're getting up. I just love it. I love this record to death. Blue Rev is a shoegaze record with, again, blown up production. Everything is reverbed out to the max. But in that reverb chaos, you get elements of just pure genius, such joy and greatness out of all of that. Riff writing here is top-notch. Melodies here, again, top-notch. Vocally, I think that she does a fantastic job singing these melodies, and as well with the storytelling that she has through each of these songs. This album easily, I can't really find a flaw with it. I think it is just one of the most consistent track lists that I've listened to all year, and this is the record that up to this point in the list I have come back to the most, because I have just really enjoyed it so much. From the first track, Pharmacist, on, if you love that track, it just gets better and better as it goes along. Interesting fact about Dawn FM. This was actually the first record that, starting this year, I went out and experimented, went out and tried something new. Because I was familiar with The Weeknd, I was familiar with Abel Tesfaye and sort of the 80s synth pop thing that he was bringing to modern R&B and modern synth pop. This is one of the better synth pop records I've heard, period. The storytelling here is masterful, how he is able to really capture this almost concept-like record feel with this theme of being in purgatory, stuck in traffic, listening to the radio, how each song deals with sort of regret and deals with the one that got away and deals with things that we ponder upon as we head to our great demise. Vocally here, it's great. It's Abel Tesfaye. You know you're going to have great vocals throughout. Synthesizers, again, fantastic, very 80s inspired, so if you like that sort of thing, you're probably going to enjoy this. The features here I think are solid, other than the Lil Wayne feature, which is but again, other features very, very good. The whole thing is narrated by Jim Carrey, who does a fantastic job. Whoever thought that Jim Carrey would have this sort of ominous, almost kind of menacing, soothing voice throughout the whole thing. It's just a treat to listen to. You have Less Than Zero, which is one of the best songs released this year, easily an absolute pleasure to listen to. And at the end, you have that great spoken word song by Jim Carrey. It's a great concept record, probably the best pop record to come out this year. I tried to explain Black Midi to somebody one time, and the only thing I was left with is if Frank Sinatra joined a 70s progressive band. Because that's what this record is. Hellfire is this clash of beauty and aggression. Because that's what Hellfire is. Hellfire is this combination and this meeting of beauty and aggression together. It is a unrelenting record from the beginning and from the onset, that you were just thrown into this extremely avant-garde progressive running of scales and extremely fast playing, extremely fast singing. The vocals here go from spoken word, from yelling, screaming their brains out, to lounge singer. There's a song on here that sounds like Frank Sinatra wrote it. And then you have songs that sound like Dream Theater met Yes. The record is so aggressive. It is so in your face, fast, and unrelenting that there's a certain beauty about it. That it's so much at once that it becomes beautiful. And it kind of leaves you speechless, honestly. It kind of leaves you with not really knowing what to define it as, or what to put it as, because it's such a mysterious sound, and you try to explain it to people and you really can't explain it because you don't even know what you're listening to. Probably the most out there record of the year, I would say, as far as getting into it. It's not something that you're just going to just pick up and put on the car and listen to. But if you sit down and listen to it, especially if you're more of a music nerd or a musician, you're going to find a lot to like here. Look, this record left me speechless. Weyes Blood is becoming one of my favorite artists right now. Weyes Blood, aka Natalie Merring. Beauty and beautiful music doesn't even do justice to how much of a treat and how much of a pleasure this album is to listen to. I have a hard time putting into words just the sheer amount of beauty that this record is. It is a Baroque pop album with lots of strings, lots of 60s psychedelic pop mixed into it as well. You know, I didn't think that she was going to be able to top Titanic Rising, because that record is as close to a 10 out of 10 as I've heard of any record to come out in the last few years. Because the thing just oozes with beauty, it oozes with majesty, and with a great royal, larger-than-life feel to it, with between the strings and Natalie's impressive vocals, which she doesn't have the most technically gifted voice, but she knows her range and she knows what she can do, and she does it so well. She does it to a T of the vocal performances on this record. This record thematically is sad, is melancholy, but at the same time has a very joyful feel to it towards the back end of it. And I remember listening to it on vinyl when it came out, and just left in awe, left speechless. I wish I had more. I was just left speechless. I wish I had a way to put into words better what I experienced listening to this record. And you'll probably understand what I mean if you go out and listen to this, which I think this is probably the record that most people getting into more experimental sides of pop will enjoy the most. Well, was there any doubt which one would be number one? Black Country New Road, Ants from Up There, is the closest thing to a masterpiece that I've heard in a long time. This record is sobering, beyond beautiful, beyond ingenious and experimental on its side, with the clashing of different genres, indie rock, chamber rock, indie folk as well. The wide range of instruments that are used throughout here: guitars, piano, violin, saxophone, synthesizer. The thing I can describe it to is something like Dave Matthews, and of course that's not even close to what it is. You have just one of the most perfectly executed performance-wise albums. Thematically fantastic. Lyrically awe-inspiring. Lyrically, again, fantastic records. Every time I listen to it, every time that I put away this record for a few months and then come back to it, I'm like, yeah, it's not that good. Maybe I look back at this record with rose-colored glasses, and maybe I look back on it saying, oh, well, maybe it's not that good. And I listen to it again, and I like it even more. Can't even begin to tell you how much I love this record, and how much this record should be the standard for new music. And this record goes out to show people that modern music is not all bad, and that there are new ingenious musicians out there who are writing fantastic records and who are writing great songs that are catchy and entertaining and energetic that I think that everybody can enjoy. This is a record you can easily jump into and really enjoy. There are longer cuts for people that enjoy more progressive, more thematic elements to it, but there's also songs like Chaos Space Marine and Concord that are both just tragically sad, but at the same time so satisfying in the songwriting on this record. So that's number one, without a doubt. Ants from Up There, best record of the year, hands down. So that's been it. That's my top 20 records of the year. Thank you so much for checking this video out. If you are like, hey Jacob, I want to see what you're reviewing all the time, well, good thing. You can check out my album of the year page. That's where I review all of my records and post them there. You can read my thoughts and see my scores. You can tell me where I'm right, where I'm wrong. You can check out my Substack, libertyoverdrive.substack.com is where I post at the end of the month. I post all of my reviews there as well. Right now I'm working on classics for the month of December, so if you want to see a classic record that's important to music history or a visual artist, you can let me know there. And if you want to see more music content, if you think my opinions are valid, or if you think I'm a complete idiot, you can let me know with a comment down below. Until next time, I'll see you later.